It's time for a change. Enough is enough. We are not taking it no more. We have churches on every corner. We are determined. We are not backing up. We are going to save our children. So today, those of you that can and will, why not carry out the legacy of Jesus and make a difference in the life of a child?
Well, hello, Ransom Church. Welcome in. We are so glad to have you, and welcome as part of our series called Expand Your Table. Welcome to Stand Sunday. My name is Paul. I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm excited to be joined by Angel Metzger. Angel, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? I'm not sure everybody knows you. Why don't you introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what your role is, how long you've been doing it?
Sure. I'm Angel Metzger, and I am the Compassion Director here. I've been on staff for about 8 years, almost 8 years. Feels like some days 8 days and 80 years. But I have got to be a part of Safe Families and serving vulnerable families since day one. But I've been in the Compassion Director role for about 1.5 years and get to really be obedient to everything that God's calling now.
Amazing, amazing. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what today is all about? What is Stand Sunday all about?
So Stand Sunday came about as a next step from Orphan Sunday, which actually started in Africa, and for many years has been a place where we get to celebrate people who are stepping in and serving vulnerable families and orphans and those, and inviting even you today to join us in doing what God's commanded us to serve the orphan and widow.
I love it. Last year, as we kind of as a church stepped into this thing called Orphan Sunday, I think it was an amazing experience, kind of an eye-opening experience for a lot of us. And what's exciting about today as part of Stand Sunday is that not only do we get to continue to explore this topic, but we also get to look back at a year's worth of stories from right here at Ransom Church. So today we're looking at some stories of people and families that are part of this church that have been in this conversation. So tell us what these stories represent and why do they matter so much?
Absolutely. So when you heard about what we were going to talk about today, either you've known somebody who does something like Safe Families or maybe is a foster family, and you created a picture in your head of what that looks like. Maybe it's, a mom and a dad that haven't had a child and are looking to expand their family, or, whatever it is that came up in your mind. We want to show you families that have stepped out of that, have shattered that norm of the idea of what you have in your head, and give you a new perspective of people who are just being obedient to what God's calling them to step into the lives of other people.
I love it. There are so many ways to impact this conversation, and we're going to look at some different stories. So let's dive in, look at one amazing family that's part of this church. Let's watch this video together.
It's a B-roll where they won't actually hear us talking. It'll just like be overlay, right? Okay. I'm learning a little bit more about the creative stuff. I'm terrible. I have no creative brain whatsoever. How many, Kaden?
3.
3?
Is it? I think it's been more. 3 years ago.
Yeah, because
Have you had to do a renewal yet?
4 years ago we were building our house, so then it'd be 3 years ago is when we started it. So
Kaden is the fact checker.
Because we did our
On top of it.
So my name is Jeremy Rowe, and this is my family. I work for South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. We have been with Safe Families for just over 3 years now. I think that's what we decided.
my name is Riker,
How old are you?
7,
Awesome. Where do you live?
in South Dakota.
Yes, you do, buddy.
And I am Sarah, and I work for Sanford as a midwife.
I'm Leah. What else do we
How
say?
old are you?
I am almost 13.
My name is Kaden. I'm 10, and I love wrestling and football.
So Jeremy and Sarah, before you guys started Safe Families, what were some of the things that led you to even be open to it?
I'd say it kind of started from Sarah's sister. So she had a little girl that was staying with her, and we kind of started building a relationship with that little girl. And then she went back to her mom. And then when she was going to get back into Safe Families, that's kind of when that opportunity arose. And then Sarah approached me with it, and we prayed about it and decided to take a leap of faith and go ahead and try it. And it was pretty awesome the first round. And I think we had our first one we were supposed to have it for a couple weeks, and it ended up being a couple months, but it turned out great. So.
What were some of the challenges that you were worried about before you got started?
The biggest challenge I think for me was we're a very busy family. We have 3 kids that are all kind of at the very busy ages. Sarah and I both work full-time jobs. So we were worried about, whether or not it's going to be daycare, whether it's going to affect our own kids, parenting our own kids. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge, the biggest fear going in was something like that. And ultimately we've seen nothing but benefit from it, especially with our kids and along with Sarah and I.
How about for you, sir? Anything other than that was a concern?
It's hard work.
It's hard work, right? It is hard, and you want to think that you'd be able to love these children like your own when they come in, and there's a little bit of fear of, am I going to be enough for them because I'm already parenting 3 other kids, and am I going to give them enough attention? But you quickly find out that the responsibility isn't all on you. Our kids step in and they love on them so well and give them attention. The kids seem happy to come right along with us. So if we have a football game or a volleyball game, they're right there in the stands cheering on. Yes, and Riker plays with them so much, and it just feels like all of a sudden they're a part of the family, and we just keep on doing our normal routine, and they're right there along, and it's not as hard as we thought it was going to be.
It's like living the same life.
It's like living the same life.
Leah and Kaden, did you guys have any fears or worries about bringing kids into your house?
I've felt like they're not gonna like me, like they were just like gonna not wanna talk to me. Like when we had our first Safe Families, she was a little shy, and then she started talking to me, and then we built a big relationship. So just like a little worried about that.
My only worry was letting them go, because with all the kids that we've had, I've got really good connections with them, and it's been hard letting them go, but it's really nice to all the kids that we've had. we've kept relationships with them, and the little girl that we've had her for a long time, and we see each other quite a bit, and she likes talking to me about school and all of her friends and her, just how school's going, how life is going, and it's pretty nice.
I was afraid of I wasn't gonna have fun when I left.
Jeremy, how about for you? Like, any places, you mentioned your kids, like how you've seen them grow. How has this affected your family as a whole? Really stretching you? Because definitely to get through some of these struggles, you really have to lean in on God as your support. You obviously have other support, but like you really have to lean in on God as your support. So how has that helped your family dynamic, or what has that looked like for you guys?
No, I mean, we've always been a pretty close family, but in some ways it kind of brought us closer together on the fact of that we had, like, I don't know if you want to call it a project, or we had like our own common goal, I guess, to love and support this, young child that we brought into our family. So I think, God really showed us that there's more than just what we have sitting right here. So I think that was probably, a big eye-opener for me, and it kind of softens your heart a little bit. We obviously love on our 3 kids, but we have enough love to go around. So I think that was a big eye-opener for me as well. But where God just kind of shows you, like, you are busy, but you do have more time, and you can offer more love. I think right away it was kind of hectic, struggling, like trying to figure out where it was or where we're going and who's taking what and who's picking up where. But after you get in the routine, I think it's just like any other kid, and you just go and you get it done. And it really, our last 2 hostings, I wouldn't say have been much of a burden at all. And it wasn't no different than that the kid was bigger or older or younger or better or worse. It doesn't matter. I just think we're kind of used to it now. And after we've done it, it's second nature. So.
And our kids have really stepped up. So they've helped with dishes or laundry or, playing with the children or just helping more around the house. And so it's taken the burden off us as parents. And it feels like, yes, we're just adding one more child to the home, and they've stepped up and really helped in those roles. So, yeah. I said to a friend earlier this week too, she was like, I don't think I could do that because it would be too hard for me to let the child go again, because I'd get too attached and I wouldn't be able to let them go. And I just said to her, well, they're not yours. They have a parent who really loves them and just needs help for a little bit. And so to take care of that child while the parent's getting back on their feet, and then seeing the beauty and letting the child return to the parent and seeing that bond stay in place is amazing. It hasn't been as much of a burden as you would anticipate it would be. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy and Sarah have an amazing story, and they've made a huge impact through this organization called Safe Families for Children. Angel, why don't you just give us a brief explanation for those who may not know, what is Safe Families for Children all about?
Right. Well, obviously, Safe Families for Children really is about relationship, and you saw that, right? And so for the kids, for the parents that we're walking alongside, and for the families. So what this looks like is when a parent needs a little bit of help, they recognize that they're in a short-term crisis, we have several roles that you can be a part of that connects to create a support system for a family that gives them support that they've probably never had in their life. One of the most beautiful things about Safe Families is it's a collaboration. It's not just Ransom doing this in Sioux Falls. There's 11 other churches, and we have a supporting agency, Bethany Christian Services. So in many times we'll have a host family from one church, a coach from another, and a respite family or a resource friend, and we all come together to love this family. And so it's not about one church loving them, it's about Jesus coming through us to love on them.
I love it. And I love that there's so many different ways to get involved. But you talked about how these stories today are going to kind of be kind of breaking norms, shattering norms, right? And I think for many of us, we look at our lives kind of like a suitcase, right? That's packed full. Our suitcase is full, and adding something new to our suitcase of life either means we have to dig through it and find something that's not quite as valuable and we take it out, or we like set it on top and then try to sit on it and like zip it up, right? So when I look at Jeremy and Sarah, their suitcase is full, right? 3 busy kids, 2 full-time jobs. They have a ton going on. So what would you tell people out there who have a full suitcase, no doubt about it? Why is Safe Families not only important, but it's possible?
So what I would say to you is we're the busiest people we know. And unfortunately, a lot of times we wear it as a badge of honor. I know I do that sometimes. People say, you're too busy for, you're so busy. Yes, I am. But it boils down to priority. And you heard Riker say it. It's like living the same life, right? But we're expanding our table. That's what we're talking about in this sermon series. We're expanding that table. And sometimes that means we do have to sacrifice something. But maybe that sacrifice is giving up a TV show. Maybe it is one less event that you're going to, but the lasting impact that makes to really help somebody, and sometimes those are good things, but if God's calling you to this, then He will find a way. He rearranges your priorities and He gives you that possibility. And so I think it's just a matter of searching in your family to navigate. Like the Rose, they definitely work they work full-time jobs. Those kids are super busy, but they do it as a family unit. And so I love Rikers. I'll say that all the time. It's like living the same life.
That's right. And Jeremy said as well that, they took a step of faith, they jumped into it, and now it's like second nature, right? Well, Safe Families is such an amazing ministry, and we want to move on and check out a video of another story. And this family actually started by serving with Safe Families, and their continued obedience to what God had for them led to some amazing things. Let's check that out together.
Yeah, and I'll even ask you, they'll totally edit a lot of stuff. So
yeah, we're good.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm rolling.
When you're rolling. Okay, awesome.
Rich and Sarah Joustra. We have been with Ransom for about 6 years now. We have 3 older kids out of the house, and we have 2 foster boys right now. We've had for about a year. So we were in Safe Families for 5 or 6 years and decided there was a much need for foster care parenting, so we decided to go into that.
Awesome. So how did the transition from Safe Families to foster care, what kind of prompted that?
We felt with Safe Families that there was so much growth that happened with the kids and not as much follow-up happened with the parents. And so we felt like transitioning to foster care that maybe parents would have more follow-up, you have to complete certain steps in order to get your kids back instead of taking them right back into the same chaos. And so that's kind of what prompted us to move into the foster care system. We still are Safe Family parents, and if we had time, we would be still involved with Safe Families because it's an amazing program. So
I think the ultimate goal is to get the kids back with their parents,
right.
Either Safe Families or adoptive. But
for sure,
that's the ultimate goal you want, but sometimes that's not going to happen. So, and we've seen there was such a need for foster parents. We both grew up in a small town where we didn't know there was such a need for foster parents. So
you did have some medical, really intense times this last year. Can you share just a little bit about that?
So the baby that we got out of the hospital that we currently still have with us was critically ill for 3.5 weeks. He was intubated last year, and the church and the church community brought meals. They were there praying. We just knew that God was so totally in that, and the people just came around us so completely, and we never felt alone in that.
We would make a call and say, "You want somebody there?" It says, "Yep, somebody was there to pray with us," and it was great.
Right.
So I think we spent every holiday in the hospital taking turns.
Yeah, 7 hospitalizations for him last year. So
But to come this far has been amazing so far. So
that's something that God taught me this year. This 2020 I know has been hard for everyone, but I said yes to foster care, and for some reason I thought we are going to cruise through this. And this year has had medical issues with the boys, things happening with our own kids.
our own marriage.
Our own marriage has
You had a wedding, and
we were stretched
It's not.
personally, marriage, our own family.
Yeah.
And I remember saying it to somebody. I said yes, I was obedient to the Lord, and look at this mess.
I love that. Angel, one of our core values here at the Ransom Church, one of the things that just makes us who we are is serving free of self, right? Tell us how foster care, like Rich and Sarah diving into foster care, how is that such a perfect example of living out this core value of serving free of self?
Nothing says it better than this family, is that free of self means it's not your plan. It's not what you are lining up. As empty nesters, this wasn't part of their plan to say, okay, after our kids leave, we're going to start over and we're going to try one thing. Or, you heard Sarah go, we said yes, and look at this mess. They didn't plan on going into that mess, but they're serving free of self, that they're taking that next step. They're taking, and then the plan was, they're in the hospital all the time, and they had to be in a place to ask for help. And so it just really opened up a paradigm for them when they actually started to do it outside of what they desired and what their plan was. When they started following that, it stretched them and grew them closer to God and to his family.
Absolutely. So let's be honest. When you hear the word foster care, an image comes to mind, maybe a feeling comes to mind. And honestly, for most of us, it's not necessarily a positive image or a positive feeling. How can the church as a whole, how can Ransom Church specifically change the narrative for foster care?
I'm going to be completely honest, and this is really hard to say, but I really, truly believe that we have to quit judging. We have, again, another norm in our head of what foster care is. We have these myths and ideas from movies, from other people's stories that aren't true, or people's trauma and hurt from a not good situation then when they were in foster care, and we think then all foster families are like that. And so for the church, if we quit judging that and we quit looking at that and we actually educate ourselves, we step into the lives of people like Rich and Sarah and we come along and support them, then everybody in that realm, in CPS and DSS, they start to see the church as part of the answer, and that it's not just a family stepping forward, it's a whole community. It's a whole family of believers coming together to support each other. And so I think we have to do some education. We have to be praying over our elected officials who are making some of those decisions, our CPS workers. We need to show them support, because we think we're going to make one phone call and say that this child, we think maybe something's going on with this child, and we believe that now that child's going to get removed. And when you step into this and you start to learn, you really see it's very different than that. And it's messy and it's hard. And we've even had families that we've walked with in foster care, and the parent actually starts to have a relationship, and CPS is blown away by that. So I love that now they're starting to look to us as part of the solution.
That's a big deal. And I think for so many of us, if we have a negative perception, the only way that changes is if we expand our table and insert ourselves in positions where we actually interact with those situations. Mm-hmm. Well, fostering is one of those things that you can pretty much expect to be messy, and you can honestly expect it to be unexpected. We're going to check out another video with another story of someone whose life has not necessarily gone according to the expected plan, and yet it has led to some beautiful things. Let's check out the story of Jackie.
Little cracks. We love you, Lord, and we give this to you. Bella.
What would you just say? What would you just...
I'm Jackie, obviously. I grew up here in Sioux Falls. I did a year of school in Omaha to become a social worker. And I did a minor in Spanish as well, so I've been using that on the mission trips. I have worked with kids in foster care for 11 years now. After doing some searching on trying to decide what I wanted to do with my social work degree. So I've been doing that for 11 years. I've been attending Ransom for like 6.5-ish. I think November will be 7 years that I've been there. And been working with the kids ministry at Ransom for about the same amount of time. I do right now preschool kids, the 4 and 5 year olds, and then also Ransom teens. And I have worked in the nursery as well. I don't know, I just always wanted to be around kids. I grew up with my mom doing daycare in our home for 10 years. And I was changing diapers and rocking babies at like 3 and 4 years old. So my mom used to say there was a few kids that I was the only one that could get them to sleep at nap time. And so I just kind of knew from the start that I wanted to have kids and be a mom, and yeah. And that's kind of where things started.
That's fantastic. So was there a moment where you knew God was calling you to adoption? Like, beyond loving kids and knowing you're going to be a mom, was like there a pivotal time in your life where you knew He was calling you to adoption?
There was a time where it got brought up and I completely denied it. I was actually having coffee with Pastor Phil one day, and we were just talking about life events. It was around the time my grandpa was dying from cancer. And my mom had been diagnosed with cancer, and so we were just having coffee and we were talking about what he could pray for me, because all of my prayers were for other people. And so I sat there and thought for a little bit, and I had just gotten out of a 7-year relationship, and we were talking, and I just kind of said, you know, for me becoming a mom, whatever that looks like. And he brought up adoption, and that maybe I'm supposed to adopt, because obviously there's not a significant person in my life at that time. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't know if that's for me or not. Hadn't been what I thought about. And so kind of a good 6 months or so went by and hadn't really thought about it again. And then I just kind of started praying more specifically about what it would look like for me to be a mom. And I have kind of what came to mind more than adoption was I have a cousin who has done in vitro twice. And so she's a single mom of 2 kids that are both full siblings. So I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe that's what my option is going to be too if I don't find the right guy. So I was kind of praying just more specifically about what does it look like for me to become a mom. And then, of course, a sermon at church threw adoption in my face over and over and over. So I then started praying about, you know, is adoption something for me? And continued praying about what it looks like to be a mom, whether it's adoption or in vitro or waiting for the right guy. And the more that I prayed those specifics, the more that adoption in every way of life kept becoming the topic. And so then I prayed more specifically about that and kind of talked to a few people that have adopted, and I just knew that that was what God wanted for me right now. I thought doing it on my own would be a challenge, or even being chosen, Bella, or even like being chosen as a single mom would be a hard thing. That was one thing that I asked the adoption worker a lot about is, how often are there single parents that go through adoption? Like, am I even going to be chosen? Who would want to give their child to a single person if they feel that they can't do it themselves? I thought the money part was going to be a struggle as well, but the more I prayed about that, because obviously I didn't just have thousands of dollars sitting around waiting to hand over, but God came through in so many ways with the finances and just the stuff for her. And so yeah, I mean, I haven't really had a lot of big challenges. It's been things that have felt like they were gonna be big and turned into something really small.
Speaking of your support, what does your circle of support look like for you personally as a single mom? What does that circle of support look like for you?
So my parents are here in town as well. My mom is retired to be a full-time grandma, so she watches Kyla when I'm working. And even like when I was on my maternity leave, they were stopping over all the time, getting groceries for me. So my parents have been a huge support. My sister and her family are close as well. So we do a lot with the kids because her son is 4 months older than Kyla. So they play together a lot, they're besties. And they also go to daycare at grandma's too. I have a lot of friends in the area that are super supportive. Some really long-time friends from middle school and stuff for 10 plus years that have families of their own too, and so they've been excited to have a friend for their kids and watch Kyla grow. And but the church family is huge as well. I guess I kind of have people all over the place. I have a softball team that is super supportive as well, and they all love Kyla.
Where have you seen God at work?
Everywhere. Throughout the entire process. Obviously, I don't think I would have adopted if I hadn't listened to God, because, I mean, all the time I feel like God speaks to us and we either don't catch it or we ignore it, and I think I could have easily, like the first conversation that brought it up to me, I could have ignored it and brushed it off, and when it kept coming back, I decided that maybe this is something I need to pray more about and explore more. And so I think if I wouldn't have listened to that, I could have been in a totally different place right now. It's been a huge God thing through the entire process, from meeting her birth mom in the hospital to having literally a weekend to plan for her, from finding out that she was even gonna be born and that I was chosen, and just trusting in the people around me to help me prepare in a weekend for a baby. Continued support over and over has been huge. Just overwhelming support from people that I have had very little contact with, to friends of family members. I feel like the entire process has been just God showering down on us, so.
Such an amazing story. Angel, I mean, let's be real. On the list of ways to impact this conversation, adoption is kind of on a unique level because it's permanent, right? And for any of us to really consider this option, to consider adopting, I feel like most of us would want to wait, make sure our life is perfectly in order, all our ducks are exactly in a row as they need to be, and it would take a huge sign from God to know that it's the right thing. So how do we really know adoption might be the right step? How do we know if we're ready, if our life is right, if it's the right thing for us? How do we know if adoption is right?
You're so funny. we never know. We never know that it's exactly the right time. All we can do is listen, just like Jackie said. We have to be listening and leaning in. So we just are never going to be exactly perfectly everything lined up. That's a norm that we think is going to happen, and we have to get rid of that thought. Listen to Jackie's story. Remember we were just talking about being the busiest people we know. Jackie might be winner. She might win. And she had every reason not to do this. But she was leaning into where God was speaking to her. And how many of us sit and we hear a sermon and we go, oh, man, he's hitting me with this again. Like that, where he is calling you, you can't get away from. I talk about when I'm working with anybody in any of these situations is it's not our job to recruit you, to have you adopt. We're just walking with you in the journey. So you have to decide that is part of your journey if that's where God's calling you. So you're never going to have this perfect thing. I mean, do you remember the first time when you knew you were going to marry Allie? Like it's like this, marriage sometimes. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry, Paul. But, you just have to lean in and not expect that there's going to be a perfect moment or a perfect plan. If nothing else, today that's shown you that.
Right, absolutely. Well, when you look at statistics over the last couple decades, adoption has gotten more common, but I think there's even still some misconceptions that are out there. Even some really good-hearted people, you'll hear comments like, you must not have been able to have children of your own, right? That's why you're adopting. Or questions like, can you ever really love them as much as you would your real kids? Things like that. Tell me how adoption is not only as real as it gets, but honestly has a spiritual connection unlike anything else.
Absolutely. I was reminded by my friend that in Romans, we're going to bring it up, Romans 8:15 through 17, it says, so you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now we call him Abba Father. For his Spirit joins with our spirit to affirm that we are God's children. And since we are his children, we are his heirs. In fact, together with Jesus, we are heirs of God's glory. But if we are to share his glory, we must also share in his suffering. And so when you look at that, you can hear what even Jackie is saying in that is that when she chose this, when she decided to lean in, we have that same power. The Holy Spirit worked in her, right? She talked about those God moments. Where did you see God show up? And so much of that was in some of the things around her financially, through support, wondering, like, as a single person, is somebody going to choose me? As a mom, the fear of a mom is maybe not choosing to parent her child because she's alone. Is she going to pick me because I'm alone? And when we look at it, go, you're not alone. The Holy Spirit is with you, and we are all adopted into his family, right? And so Scripture would say that it's a supernatural act that we are co-heirs with Christ. We're all adopted into his family.
That's right. Such an amazing thing when we think about it for our own spiritual journey, but then when we can translate that out in a physical way, that's pretty amazing. Well, we have time for one more story. And the truth is, to really make a difference in this conversation, many of us are honestly going to have to open our homes. In some way, many of us are going to have to open our doors, to open our lives and our homes to a child or a family in crisis. But the fact is, none of that is really going to be fully effective unless all of us choose to be part of this together. So maybe so far, you're kind of sitting here, you're experiencing this, and you're inspired, but you're not really sure if you're seeing your place yet. Maybe your situation, your life context has you thinking that you don't really have a role in this story. Well, the video we're about to watch together, the story we're about to see, maybe more than any other, shows that each and every one of us has a part to play in this conversation. Let's check out this together.
My name is Becca, and I am the team leader.
My name is Roja.
And you're the mom. Audra, why don't you go and then we'll come back.
My name is Audra, and I'm just part of the wraparound team.
Cool.
So I'm Eric McDonald, and I'm excited to be part of this team.
Yeah, I'm Kayla Van Wyk, and my role initially started was being part of the positive encouragement side of things, so helping to write cards and just kind of touch base with these guys. And then kind of as things started happening, I got to meet Jamira and Jayla, and it kind of shifted from positive encouragement to I get to spend more of my time hanging out with these girlies from time to time and getting to hang out and do some fun things here and there and having some adventures. So it's been good.
I'm Jayla Jones, and I'm in 5th grade.
Okay. I'm Jamira Jones.
Where do you go to school?
I go to Edison. And I
Awesome.
like playing basketball.
Basketball. We had some ballers.
Well, I first got connected with Wraparound from hearing you talk about it at church, that it was going to be a new ministry starting up. And I think right away, initially, I got really excited about it. I love to serve and help, but I think just the really practical ways of being able to step into people's lives made me really excited, and to be a support for really families who really needed it. So I was excited just to get involved in something more like that.
So I first got involved with Safe Families because when I look back on my life, I know that without a doubt I wouldn't be where I am today without other people loving on me and being Jesus to me, unquestionably. And so I just feel like, not only because we are commanded to love others, but because he has given me a heart to say, look what I did for you, could you maybe pour into somebody else's life? And so through Safe Families, I got a call just to try to walk alongside Roja, and I too felt very inadequate, but it made it easy to love this family. And I just, from the moment I met Roja, I have had nothing but the utmost respect and regard for the challenge that she has taken on and the role that she is stepping into as mom and auntie, super mom and super auntie.
So I have 3 kids of my own. I have a 19-year-old, and I have 2 girls, 13 and 10. And then I just adopted my nephews, who are 12 and twin 5-year-olds.
Right. So how long have you been a single mom of 6 kiddos?
For about 3 years. The first year was pretty tough. I didn't have really any time away from the kids or away from, even the house. The boys came with a lot of behavioral problems, trauma response behaviors that was hard to deal with, and going out in public, they didn't really know how to act.
What were some of the stresses that put on for you in your children bringing in their cousins into your home? How did that change the dynamic for you?
They all just had a lot of needs that were never met, and I felt really overwhelmed with just kind of meeting all of their needs, and my kids kind of, didn't. I had to help a lot with taking care of them, and I didn't really have a lot of time for my own kids. I felt very isolated. I felt like a horrible mom most of the time because of the way they were acting, and I didn't know how to help them. After surviving the first year and a half, and then I kind of believed that I could do it, and I feel like, so when I was at my breaking point and did not feel like I could go anymore, I was kind of ready to let them go back. That's kind of when I got connected with Audra, and she was kind of like my first support here. and it ended up being more, support for me. And then I got connected with some respite families, and which gave me some hope that I could, do it, and that, that's what I needed all along, was some help.
Well, originally I thought I was just going to come in and maybe help financially behind the scenes and maybe say some prayers. And so when I got involved, it felt like it changed significantly, which was awesome. I saw these awesome young boys that just needed some good male father figures. And so, while I got in expecting one thing, it shifted gears and to a different, and I love it. It's great.
So what was your first reaction to when I reached out and said, can we create a family around you of support?
Not so much nervous. I think I was more excited and felt like that's what my kids need. I need, and just support and love and healthy role models.
So what are some of the things that the wraparound team has been able to provide for your family?
So meals, helping with meals and respite care. And
how about, I happen to know there's some relationships building with your kids and with you and some of the team members. Can you share a little bit about some of that?
The girls have really connected with Kayla. They really look up to her and really enjoy hanging out with her. And the twins adore everyone. They're always asking for Becca and Audra, and they've, since meeting you, they've, still ask, when do we get to go back? When do we get to, go back? And of course, they all love Eric and want to move in.
We all do. We all want to move in with Eric.
Yeah, I think that it started with just thinking I could just be behind the scenes and dip my toe in the water. And then, I don't know, I think God just moved in my heart in other ways, just thinking about how men need to kind of step up and be good role models for other men as well as boys. And so I did, yeah. And I think that it's been great for our kids to be able to take all these little kiddos in. So I basically said, hey, I love investing in the boys, and so we're pulling the boys in our family versus the girls. And so I know that you guys have got an awesome team here, and we've got an awesome team on our side. So yeah, it's fun to pull the twin 5-year-olds and Xavier, a 12-year-old, into the house. So we would play laser tag. We'll go on 4-wheeler rides in the backyard. We'll, I don't know, it's fun just seeing the kids mesh together and do movie night and popcorn and pizzas, and so I don't know, we're just hanging out, being real.
So tell us about your relationships with Audra and Rebecca. You have 2 people that are your team leads for your team, for your family, and so what's that been like to have that extra support in your life?
I guess I would say, just I don't feel so alone that, I have to do it by myself, even though it's hard to ask. I know, if I had to ask, I could probably get help.
Absolutely. How has this changed your heart for the hope for your family?
I just want to believe, and, I want to believe that, it's Jesus, it's God, loving our family.
Yeah. If you could just ask for one prayer today, what would that be?
I would say to feel loved.
So last question that I can think of right now if there is somebody out there who is struggling, that is feeling isolated and feels like they don't have support, what encouragement would you give to them to reach out to ask for help?
People are willing to help. There's people there that will help.
Well, Roja and the team there are a perfect example of the value of wraparound care. Now, wraparound care might be a new concept for some people, and I think many of us see hosting a child, bringing a child or a family into our home as like this superhero kind of act. And honestly, in a lot of ways it is, right? But how have you seen, in working with these wraparound teams, how have you seen wraparound expose and unleash superheroes in other ways?
Well, you saw Roja is the superhero, right? And so what wraparound came out of actually Orphan Sunday last year, of recognizing that people were stepping in to big roles of and big leaps of faith, and they know the church that loved them and supported them, but maybe sometimes they couldn't tangibly always feel it. And so we created this ministry called Wraparound, and each letter stands for something different, W, R, A, and P. And so many of the responses that we had last year, we had over 300 people respond last year. Many, many of you stepped into this role. So we have hundreds of people from Ransom coming alongside adoption families, foster families, safe families, and loving them and supporting them in ways. And of course, COVID has thrown a little bit of a wrench in that, but they still actually tangibly feel supported. And so we definitely need more, because if we're asking people to step into these roles of stepping into the lives of families and kids, they need support too. And you heard from the videos that a lot of times you step your toe into one, right? You heard Eric, maybe I'll just write a check, or I'm just gonna pray. And then they meet the family. They get connected, and God has just expanded how they are a part of this. You know, the relationship is so important, and that's what we're doing with Wraparound.
Amazing. It's an amazing opportunity for people to get involved in different ways. And as we've talked about already, many of us are truly going to be called to open our homes to a child or to a family. But the fact is, every single one of us are commanded to open our hearts, to open our arms, to expand our tables in this conversation. So tell me why many of us probably are compassionate and have pity for this conversation. Tell me why pity for orphans is not enough.
I like to explain this in the charity versus love conversation, right? Charity is fantastic. It's filling a need with something tangible. A lot of times it's because you want to feel good about the way that you're doing that. Love looks very different. A good example of this is, as we're working with Roja, there are a lot of tangible things that she felt supported by. Meals, handymen coming to our house to help with, as a single mom of 6, who has time to put up a shower curtain rod or, some of those things. And so she needed all those. But when we sat down and really talked to her, the thing that she desired the most was community. So we planned a time. We had a fire pit at our house, and the kids were running around. It was total impromptu. We did s'mores. It didn't take hardly anything except for us to open up and have an opportunity to just get to know her. And she leaned over and she said, "This is what I've been needing. I wanted my kids to see what healthy relationships look like, what love looks like, and not just people giving us things, but people being with us." And that's what we're talking about.
I think too many of us overthink what it means to expand our tables. Something as simple as a bonfire can be expanding your table. Well, here in a moment, we're going to walk through exactly how we can join this conversation, how you can respond, how you can be part of making a difference. But before that happens, I want to ask you, Angel, one more question. Why now? Why now? We're in the midst of a pandemic. There's tension around the election. The economy is a question mark. Why in the world would now be the time to be part of this?
Right. Actually, more now than ever, they need us. We are all going through this, and you heard Sarah even talk about it. I thought I was going to step into this and I was going to be a breeze. But honestly, if you think about our lives and how we've handled some of the situations that have thrown at us this year, we have support systems. We have success pillars that help us navigate that. Now you think of a family that doesn't have support systems. They don't have pillars of success. They grew up in foster care. They grew up with trauma in their life. They need our support and our love, unconditional love, more now than ever before as we navigate even kids not being in school. A big piece of my heart was, what about those kids that are left in homes with parents who are stressed out and don't know how to do it, that are worried about the paycheck to paycheck? These are the families that need us now. And there is something for all of us to do, at least one. There's a place. There's no getting around it.
That's right, and honestly, it's the perfect opportunity to serve free of self. Even in the midst of some of our own stresses and struggles, we have the opportunity to expand our tables and come alongside. Well, it seems only fair that as we talk about taking these tangible steps together, that maybe I share a little bit of my story. Because last year, my wife, Allie, and I were part of Orphan Sunday, right? We were part of kind of putting it together and coming up with the content and getting prepared for it. And so we had the chance to have lots of conversations about it. And as we got kind of closer to the day, we were prepared going into it. We had talked about it. We had prayed about it. We had come in confident that we were going to be brave. We were going to be bold, and we were going to check the box to get involved with Safe Families for Children. And we were, excited and terrified and all those things, right? But that morning, Orphan Sunday morning, about a year ago, I stood on stage and I asked everybody else in the room the question, what would it look like to take one more step? Whatever your gut reaction is to getting involved, whatever the thing you think, yes, I can do that, what would it look like to take one more step? And my wife was sitting somewhere over there, and God spoke to her and told her to take one more step. He said, Safe Families is amazing, but I'm asking you specifically to take another step. And so that journey of letting God tell us what he had in mind for us has taken us down the road of adoption. And it's been amazing and exciting and terrifying and all those things. We're waiting for a phone call, and honestly, we have no clue what the end of that journey is going to be, but we know he's called us to it, and we know he's faithful in the midst of it. So my question to all of you today is, what would it look like to take one more step? What would it look like to actually get involved with this? What would it look like to check the box, to text the number, to actually follow through and get involved in something important? Why not? Why not? Why not let God speak to you and trust him for what he has? It's time for us to stand together.
So church, what is God calling you to do right now? Is he calling you just to sit silent off in the stands? I don't think so. I think he's calling you right now to be active, to stand with those who are in need, to support those around us who are struggling. And we are called right now to play our part in this community called the church. So I encourage you right now, go ahead and take out your phone, text the word STAND to 605-777-7728, and you will receive a form that has all sorts of different ways that you can become involved. Safe Families for Children, foster care, adoption, wraparound, generosity. You can be involved and play a part. Now, not every single part is meant for everyone, but God is calling you to do something. So don't just let today go by and just let this message become null and void. Do something. get involved, support those who are in need. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity that we have to support one another, to support those who may need help and are in over their heads, and they know it. And God, I thank you for the opportunities that we can say, you're not alone. That's something that we've constantly been hearing these past several months, that we're not alone, that we, as the church, are meant to support one another. And so, God, I pray right now that you would call clearly those people who are called to be a part of Safe Families, that they would be able to discover how they can help support a person who is struggling and be able to get them back up on their feet, and then be able to provide all the needs for their families while not sacrificing them, not losing them, but being able to have a support system around them. God, we pray for those who are being called to foster, that you would open their hearts for the care and love that those kids need. I pray that you would call out those who are being called to adopt, that you would push on their hearts and show them the need for people to care for those who are not supported, for those who are looking for a mom and dad. I pray that you would give confidence in those people who are you're calling to seek adoption, and help them find comfort in knowing that they would be fantastic families, fantastic parents. And God, I pray for those who are being called to wrap around these families and care for them and be able to love on them and create a support system and network to help remind them that they're not alone. God, I pray for each one of those opportunities that you would call it out to each one of us. Not one of us sits out in this game. We are all playing actively on the field right now. God, thank you for calling us. It's in your great name we pray. Amen.